the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome all of you to this sharing experience session, which has been a quarterly event of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the President, and I would also like to invite the Secretariat to now bring up the national anthem. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we now have the webinar guidelines, which will serve as like our housekeeping. So if Zoom volumes is too low, check your system to adjust that. The webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel, Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. Also, to comment and have discussions, please use the chat icon. Submit your questions via the Q&A icon. Only this will be answered during the question and answer session. So without much ado, I would now like to welcome the President of the Council, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi, who will do the introduction, give us a welcome address as well as introduction of our guest speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oshi. Good afternoon, patrons, council members, members of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm indeed delighted to welcome you to the September edition of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce Sharing Experiences series themed Beyond the Glass Ceiling, organized by the Programs Committee of the Chamber. The NBCC does not require any introduction to many of you. However, for the sake of those of you who are joining us for the first time, the NBCC is the foremost bilateral chamber in Nigeria. It was established in 1977 to promote trade and investment between Nigeria and Britain. The NBCC is affiliated with the British Chambers of Commerce, which gives members beneficial access to a network of 53 chambers across the UK and 71 other international affiliates. The Chamber carries out various activities targeted at the promotion of trade and investment, advocacy, business incubation, training, business networking, and policy formulation. The Sharing Experiences series is a signature event of the Chamber, which we started in December 2019. The series is designed to provide a platform for the world to learn from the experience of exemplary leaders and achievers in the organized private sector. The program enables these great men and women to share the stories of entrepreneurship, dream actualization, and innovation. At the Chamber, we feel that this event is particularly timely within the context of the significant progress made in achieving gender diversity in the leadership, given the recent appointment of a number of female CEOs, particularly in the banking sector. This development is a quantum leap from a sector aiming to meet up with the Nigerian Sustainable Banking Principles on achieving gender diversity and inclusiveness at the top management levels. With the 7 women landing the top job in the country's leading banks, this represents a major boost to the actualization of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Having the caliber of today's guest speaker join us today is a great opportunity for learning for all of us, and I'm convinced that we shall find today's session very insightful. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce today's guest speaker, Mrs. Ireti Samuel Ogu, MD CEO, Citibank, Nigeria Limited. Ireti Samuel Ogu became the MD CEO at Citibank in September 2020. Prior to this appointment, she was a Europe, Middle East, and Africa head payments and receivables, treasury and trade solutions under Citi's Institutional Clients Group based in London, the United Kingdom. She has also been on the board of Citibank Nigeria Limited for the past 5 years as a non-executive director. She has 32 years experience at Citi, during which time she has held various roles in the UK, Nigeria, South Africa. Previous roles have included relationship management, which include global subsidiaries groups and the public sector banking group. Ireti is a champion of diversity and inclusion. She co-founded 2 impactful mentorship initiatives within Citi, the Sapphire Leadership Program and the Momentum Program in the UK. Ireti is currently the EMEA co-chair for Women's Affinity and represents EMEA on the Global Affinity Steering Committee. She's a lead contributor and thought leader in various banking and fintech forums across EMEA and has won awards in the UK and South Africa. It is also my pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's event, Ms. Lara Kayode, founding partner, O Kayode & Co. Her practice covers both corporate and founding commercial matters with particular focus on industrial and intellectual property law, advertising law, and ADR with a special interest in mediation. Lara studied law at the University of Buckingham, England, and at the QMW University of London, where she obtained an LLM in intellectual property law. She was admitted to the Nigerian bar in 1992. She's currently an active practitioner in the field of IP and international speaker. Lara is currently ranked by Chambers and Partners, MIP, IP Stars, and she's a WCR Global Leader. In 2019, she received the prestigious INTA President's Award. At the MBCC, she's currently the Vice Chairperson of the Trade and Investment Committee. I would also like to thank our sponsors, Custodian Investment PLC, for their generosity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention and now have the pleasure to invite Lara Kayode to begin the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good afternoon, everybody. It is my pleasure to moderate this session today. May I please have Ms. Ireti log in now? Thank you. Welcome, ma'am. It's really my pleasure to moderate this session today, titled Beyond the Glass Ceiling. Before I begin to have a chat with our guest speaker, I'd like to talk about what this glass ceiling, what's this all about? So in my research, I came up with this definition or a comment. Apparently, it was coined almost 40 years ago by Marilyn Loden, and she said the glass ceiling refers to the sometimes invisible barrier to success that many women come up against in their careers. In 2017, she thought it was still as relevant as ever, but I think a couple of years later, we can say in Nigeria, I think we've gone through the glass ceiling, and I think the sky really is not our limit. Without much ado, I'd like to just, ask Ireti to tell us briefly her personal career journey. She's one of 7 MD CEOs, female MD CEOs in the banking sector in Nigeria. And I think it's really our honor. It's my personal privilege and honor to be speaking with you today. Could you please tell us your journey? How did you get to where we are today?
Thank you very much, Lara. And I'd like to say a big thank you for the honor to the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce. I don't take these invites lightly, and thank you very much for the invitation. We're actually 8 bank CEOs now. The number keeps rising, so it's a wonderful number, and I'm privileged to be part of that community. So in terms of my career, in the introduction, Madam Chair said I'd been at Citi for 32 years. It's actually 33 this year. And I started my career in Nigeria as a relationship manager 33 years ago. But since I started my career in Nigeria, I've worked in 2 other countries. I've worked in the UK, I've worked in South Africa. And in the UK, I worked twice, in South Africa twice, and Nigeria, this is my 3rd tour of duty, to use a military metaphor. So I've kind of gone around a few different countries. I've also done 10 roles in that time, which, as I mentioned, I started off as a relationship manager, moved into operations and technology for a while, also worked in corporate finance. And I'd say before taking over the role, actually a year ago in 5 days' time, before taking over the role, I was in Treasury and Trade Solutions, and was in product management for I'd say a large amount of my career. The kind of roles I've done actually have been different, apart from the diversity of functions and areas. I've also done roles that were just in the country, so Nigeria, South Africa, for example, and then roles that straddled a cluster, which is Sub-Saharan Africa, for example, 14 countries, included North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. And in the role I did before moving to Nigeria a year ago, I was responsible for 55 countries, which made up our Europe, Middle East, and Africa franchise.
Excellent. That sounds like it's literally 80 days around the world. I mean, you've really sowed a lot of seed on the continent. It was at Pair and also in the UK. So 10 roles. I mean, that took my attention. I'm like 10 roles. What would you say are the defining moments, along these roles, along the path that you've taken to get to where we are today? In 5 days, I think you said, will be your anniversary. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I would say probably 3 come to mind in terms of defining moments. And the first one was when I asked to move into operations and technology after being a relationship manager for 3 years. And that just wasn't the done thing then, and it probably isn't very popular now, because operations and technology is considered the back office, and being a relationship manager is considered being the front office, which I think is quite a spurious distinction, because everybody is there to serve the customer. So it's such a thing. But I was actually interested in learning more about banking from the grassroots. And I went straight into serving clients without really understanding the nuts and bolts, and felt that that was a great way of doing that. And I had found that subsequent to when I joined as a management associate, there was very structured exposure and training for those who joined after me. And part of that exposure and training was actually rotating through operations and technology. And I saw the breadth it gave my colleagues and just the accelerated learning. So that was something that I did. So that was a defining point for me, asking to move into operations and technology. And why it was so pivotal is when I was then in the position to move to the UK a few years later, it was the operations and technology experience that stood me in good stead, that made me stand out and gave me a great opportunity to move to the UK. So had I not done that, I would not have had the first opportunity to work at Citi in the UK in corporate finance when I moved in '95. So I would say that was the first defining moment for me. I would say the second one was really understanding the power of asking. And I had had a successful career up to 2013, but I had never really specifically asked for particular jobs. I was more or less headhunted for different roles. And I actually spoke to a few people from about 2010 that I'd really like to think about moving from South Africa, doing a different role. And interestingly, when such a role came up in a couple of years later, I got a phone call when I was working in South Africa from somebody I'd been talking to who was based in London, who said, look, there's this great opportunity. Why would you not consider it? Now, of course, I went through a normal competitive process, but because I have put the word out there about being interested in moving to another role and moving countries, I got the tap on the shoulder to apply, which maybe would not have happened had I not asked for a new opportunity. So I would say that was the next kind of pivotal opportunity for me. And I think of it as ask and you shall receive, because by asking, I received the opportunity, not the role. And I was able to compete for the role. And London, for me, at the time I went, was really a fantastic shift in my career. It kind of moved what I was doing onto a global stage. And it just opened so many doors. Up till then, I'd only had experience, most of my experiences had been in Africa. And of course, I'd had a stint in London, but it was 3 years. So, and it was at a time when digitization, fintechs, and all the explosion that we're seeing, all the trends that are coming up, whether it's ESG and those kind of things were coming up. And so I had the opportunity to represent Citi in very high profile events like Eurofinance. I was very privileged to be nominated for awards by that move into London. But the third, I would say, defining moment in my career was actually related to the second. And I talk about London like it had always been a success. Well, it wasn't always so. 5 months after I moved to London, the wind was, taken out of my sails, if you like, the whole move was upended when the role that I went to do actually modified, and I moved from being a sales head in a product organization, and I moved into the relationship space. And to be responsible for relationships when you've never worked in that part of the world at that kind of level, there's a role in Citi, the sort of most senior role, which is the managing director role. By the time you're a managing director in a relationship role, you have built those relationships and you have all those contacts. But I had the title and I had none of the contacts. So that was a pivotal moment for me. And why it was pivotal is that I learned that failure wasn't fatal. And really a setback can be a route to a comeback. And I didn't make that up. That's from Tim Story, a writer and evangelist who I really admire. But really, it was a constraint becoming an opportunity. And the role that I did before coming here, which was a role that I think I really flourished in and really enjoyed. This setback role really prepared me for that, because I was responsible for 55 countries in this other role in a corporate and investment bank, and I had to actually start learning about Western Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, and also going to countries like Russia, ending up in countries like Romania, and everything else in between. So just trying to learn about this sort of diverse, non-homogeneous group of countries. And the difficulty that I had in terms of not being able to continue with the role I actually went to London to do, actually set the foundation for the success in the role that I actually did after.
Thank you. Wow. I'm trying to scribble notes, but I remember that it's being recorded. So I'm going to literally sit down and, look at this again. So you moved to a totally different area, something that you were not comfortable with. You didn't know, but you knew it was necessary for you to move forward in your career. And secondly, I love what you said, the power of asking. I think we don't ask enough. I think we don't lean in enough, to borrow that term. The worst that can happen is no, but at least you ask. If you don't ask, then you don't know. And I love the final comment about failure not being fatal. I think we're all scared to fail, but if we don't fail, how then do we make progress? And I just, I admire, your tenacity and the necessity, feeling, for want of a better word, feeling free to just take that risk, to just jump. So now you've been in the same company pretty much from the beginning of your career. Would you say, the core values of your company enabled you, go in this way, where you had the support? You must have had the support. I mean, like you said, you mentioned, so it was an open door. There was somebody to talk to. What about mentorship? Did you have mentorship during, in your company or outside your company? As women, what do we need to be looking out for?
Great question. And I think some of the things that I learned, obviously, was it wasn't conscious learning in terms of figuring it out all at once. And it was really through experience. I would say, first of all, the culture of Citi is very much one that is diverse and inclusive and embraces different types of people, not only culturally, different stages in life, definitely is focused on women. So I think that culture really did help in terms of helping me with my career. I wouldn't say that I had formal mentors as such. I think because of the culture of the organization, I had managers and supervisors who took an interest in my career and also, gave advice along the way and, gave pointers in terms of what to do. So I would say that would be probably an important contributor to getting here. I think the other piece came from self-learning as well, because yes, the culture was enabling, supportive, and there's a whole kind of affinity infrastructure we have at Citi that looks at diversity and inclusion and encourages many different types of people in the organization. But I had to learn about being brave and not perfect. And that's also a title that I've gotten from another book, which I was exposed to by Reshma Sarjani. And you can have the most enabling environment, but if you're not aware of, for example, the fundamental differences between men and women and how they operate, you are not able to take advantage of a culture that is inclusive and enables women to progress. And what do I mean by that? I spoke about asking, and I'd been in the organization over 20 years before I figured out that you could actually ask. And why I reference that book, Being Brave and Not Perfect, is that Reshma Sarjani talks about how women wait till they feel perhaps close to 100% ready to take a role, while our male counterparts perhaps maybe 50% ready, and they're much braver about putting themselves out there and taking those roles. So I think sometimes it's not that you are held back or that you don't have an enabling environment. It's one's individual mindset that could determine whether you succeed or not. And had I not known that I could open the door, and I was waiting for somebody to open the door for me, I wouldn't have realized that advancement and progress was possible. So I think it's important also, apart from the environment, to also be introspective and to think about what is your role and what you need to do to be able to advance. And even though, you know, I didn't think that in City there was a glass ceiling for me that meant that I couldn't progress beyond, but I found that I was limiting myself to a certain extent in terms of my thinking and not realizing that I could take more risks and I could put myself out there for bigger roles, even when I felt only 50 or 60% ready.
Ready. Excellent. And I think this really cuts across both male and female, you know, people, whether you're male or female, self-learning, being brave and not perfect, you know, just taking that step, jump in, just go, just do it. Like that sportswear slogan, or you know, says, just do it. It doesn't matter, you know, what gender you are. If there's an opportunity, and you know, see an opening, even if the opening is not there, and you think you have the ability to do it, put in a word, ask. Thank you very much, ma'am, for that. We've heard about you being a champion of diversity and inclusion. Apart from diversity and inclusion, what else inspires you? I've heard you refer to 2 books, so I guess you're a reader. I'm wondering what else? What else inspires you? You know.
I would like to say, in the interest of full transparency, I'm a listener. I tend to do podcasts a lot more than reading. I just find, because reading is such an integral part of my day job, it's far more relaxing to listen. Yeah. So just
absolutely.
But I would say 3 things. First of all, my faith, right? I'm a Christian. I believe in God. That's a big driver for me, faith. Second one, I would say, that drives me is family. My mother was great inspiration, is a great inspiration to me. And as are my siblings and my husband and 2 daughters. And the third thing I would say is a sense of fun. I try and find time for things that I enjoy. I ran 1 marathon. I wish it was more than 1 in 2019. I am a runner, but now I've become more of a walker, I have to say. Running, walking, reading, as you mentioned, or listening. And I also enjoy the art scene in Nigeria, and also wherever I am, I always look for an exhibition to go to, a gallery to visit. And yeah, so those would be, I'd say, the 3 F's that are my inspiration.
Awesome. Faith, family, and fun. Let's talk banking. The role of digitization in the Nigerian banking system in the 21st century. You've mentioned fintech. You've talked about digitization. What would you say you know, how important is it for us to keep our eye on the ball, you know, in the Nigerian banking system, digitization, and also, you know, the importance of fintech in financial inclusion?
Sure. So just in terms of digitization, I think of digitization through 2 lenses. One of them is front end, in terms of how financial institutions interact with their clients. And that has really grown in leaps and bounds in Nigeria. You have the USSD for those who don't have smartphones to be able to initiate payments. You also have banking apps, in terms of, you know, all of us now can stand at the hairdresser and make a payment for our hair, you know, using those wonderful apps. And also that's beginning to evolve in terms of, in fact, QR codes, which were very popularized and you know, used very, very extensively in places like Asia, have now come to Nigeria. So that's another form of automation, and enables you to click and make a payment in a seamless manner. So that's the first kind of digitization I would reference. The other kind is more of a back-end digitization, where you automate your systems, where you eliminate manual type of transactions, and where you kind of scale using automated means of processing. And why this is important, I think, is that first of all, it enables efficiency in the environment. And of course, Nigeria in many ways can be considered inefficient, you know, in terms of electricity, in terms of our infrastructure, I should just say. But, you know, so to have a banking system where is efficient, you know, just enables life to be a lot easier. So efficiency, I think, is one thing that is improved through digitization. And also with that, linked to that is cost. The cost to serve reduces. And this is linked to the financial inclusion point that I'll talk about it in a minute. And then the last bit is experience, client experience. It just makes banking easier and more of a pleasure. I remember when I was younger and I first went to school in the UK, and a big challenge was getting your school fees, and it was a day. You would go and sit in my parents' bank. Back in the day, you'd sit there a whole day to be able to get the approvals. And now, if you want to get your BTA, it's a question of matter of minutes. And all the automation, whether it's checking your BVN, checking your travel details, checking all the aspects, the due diligence, I should say, about that transaction is all done using a NIBS backend system. And you find that it's a quick activity now. And of course, to the point I was making payments for purchases, you go to any any restaurant or shop, and it's a quick few seconds payment. So it really improves the quality of life and the efficiency. To the point you were making in terms of financial inclusion and fintech, I think mobile is perhaps one way in which financial inclusion has really been improved. Having the whole mobile, the payment services banks, and their ability to reach the last mile, and also provide wallets and savings for individuals, I think is being very helpful from a financial inclusion perspective. I think also in terms of the whole open banking, should I say, regime and transition that's happening. And what open banking does is enables individuals to own their data, and it democratizes data and allows that data to be ported. Now, financial inclusion is normally, banks are normally a little bit reluctant to deal with individuals because they don't know enough about them, and they certainly are not comfortable about lending to them. But if there's a way of, first of all, through the initiative that the banks, the banking industry has put in place, which is having agents all over Nigeria, the whole agency banking phenomena, where there's something like 400,000 agents, mom and pop shops all around. It means that individuals who were previously excluded can then come into the banking fold, because they can do payments at those different points. They can pay bills, and they can buy airtime and so on. And so they can start being brought in slowly and surely, and then they can start opening very low tier bank accounts. And when you start to open bank accounts, and open banking is put as an overlay over that, it means that one banking relationship can have a window into all the other banking relationships by the individual giving the right for that information wherever they bank to be made available. Whether at the moment it's only the non-microfinance banks that have that initiative, but there's no reason why microfinance banks should not be part of the whole open banking regime. So it just means the more information and data you have about an individual, the more comfortable you are about providing them additional banking services and maybe even thinking about lending to them and helping them, whether it's with their farms or any other kind of economic activity they're involved in. So I think between the mobile, the payment services banks, what's happening in terms of agency banking, how the banks through SANEF have enabled that increased distribution, and then overlaying open banking on all of that really improves financial inclusion. But last thing to talk about, which is something which was announced recently, which is not related to fintechs, but really I think will improve inclusion, is the e-Naira. And what the e-Naira does is digitize money in circulation. So everybody spends cash, right? So if a part of that money in circulation gets digitized, and it means that everybody is connecting into the banking system by having an e-Naira wallet.
Wow, awesome. Thank you very much. I mean, we've learned it's really literally through fintech and through digitization in like 3 minutes. I see that we have some questions in our question and answer booth, and I'll just start to ask those with your permission, ma'am. So okay, glass ceiling. Oh, okay, no. All right. Must we change ourselves as women to fit? This is from an anonymous attendee. It says, must we change ourselves as women to fit into systems designed for men?
That's a great question. And I actually think that it's a shame if we feel we've got to change, because diversity and inclusivity is all about different types of people bringing in a richness of ideas. And I don't think, and I've never felt that I needed to become any or be anything else than who I am to succeed. Women, I think, need to continue to be who they are and to be comfortable being who they are, and they don't have to retrofit into somebody else's idea of what they need to be. I don't think I don't think I've given up femininity to become successful. I've continued to be a wife and a mother. I've continued to be the person I am, to be as authentic as I can be. I haven't felt the need to be more outspoken or more aggressive or to, wear suits, with trousers. I haven't felt the need to be any of those things. So I do think that there's a space, and it's important that whatever sphere of life you're in, it's important to show up as a woman. And it's important for men to show up as men, because
absolutely.
all of us can work together.
Absolutely.
And all of us have our roles to play.
Yes.
Be my
Thank you so much, ma'am. I have another question here saying, do you think your story would have been different if you had worked in different organizations or industry?
That's a question I have never been asked before. So I think it's difficult to answer that question because I've only worked for 2 organizations. So I worked for an accounting firm when I first graduated for 2 years, and then worked at Citi for 33. But I have to say, one thing that I would say is that some of what would be applicable in another firm is applicable in the organization I work for, which is you're working in different countries. So yes, there's a culture of Citi, but you're working in different countries and you need to prove yourself. I've worked in different countries, I've worked in different functions. And to be honest, sometimes it felt like I was working in different organizations. So because I work in an organization that has over 90 offices the world over, some of my experiences, I would say, are very similar to having worked in different organizations. I think it's fair to say that also you do have the benefit of having some institutional knowledge and some aspects of the culture that are not different in different countries. So yes, so I think, you know, in conclusion, it's possible that being in the same organization has helped. To be honest, it's possible. Yeah. But I like to think that if you hold some principles, some you know, you go about your career in having particular principles in terms of being the best version of yourself, taking challenges and those kind of things, you'll be successful even if you were moving from one organization to another.
Excellent, thank you. I have quite a few questions, so I'll just go through. We're okay for time. So what are the top three attributes that you possess which have stood you in excellent stead in the course of your career? I think you've kind of spoken to that throughout, but if you wanted to address that, please do.
Attributes. I would say one of them is resilience. You know,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
not letting situations get me down.
Yes.
Secondly, I would say interpersonal skills.
Yep.
I think I enjoy dealing with people. I enjoy working with people. And then I would say a positive mindset.
Positive.
I'm always looking, I'm a half full kind of person rather than a half empty kind of person, I would say.
Excellent. Wonderful. Okay, so I have another question here. It says, I'm elated listening to Mrs. Samuel Ogbu. She has helped demystify some fears that a lot of women in the corporate world have. Can she please share how she overcame imposter syndrome? Because this seems to be a major limiting factor for most female folks in the marketplace.
I don't know if you ever overcome imposter syndrome. I think you just learn to live with it.
Correct. Absolutely.
You know, you just learn to live with it, and you realize that the way I try and overcome it is that, well, I have some domain expertise, right? I have some domain expertise, so there must have been a reason why I got here or why I'm here, right? Correct. And the other thing is that I went through a competitive process. So even if I might not see it on this day at this time, somebody else, or at least 10 other people, saw the potential in me. So I remind myself of those things. But I do think it's like, people ask me also about speaking in public, whether I ever get over the nerves. And the answer to that is also, I never do. And I talk about butterflies flying in formation, right? So we have butterflies formation. So similarly with imposter syndrome, you just learn to deal with it better. I don't think you ever feel deserving sometimes of some of the opportunities
that you've had.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, I think this has been answered. Okay, so with the disruptive forces largely caused by the pandemic, technology, and increasing diversity in the workplace, there's a whole load of known unknowns and unknown unknowns. As a leader, what broad advice would you proffer for managing uncertainty?
Wow. I think we're still navigating our way through what has been an existential crisis and a completely unprecedented situation for many of us. I would say, first of all, people, wherever you are the most important asset. And making sure that people are fine and making sure that you connect with people on a regular basis is perhaps the first principle that comes to mind. And the second, I would say, is being open to learning and creativity and trying to find opportunities in difficulty. And it's to the point I made before in terms of the half full rather than half empty mindset, is the positive framing, trying to find something positive. And actually, a few positives have come out of this pandemic. One is that we've debunked the myth that you cannot have flexibility. And this is a plus for women who need to, many of us are, multitasking, running the home, sorting our kids, doing our work. And to have the ability to come in and out of your workday, to be able to handle the other responsibilities, I think has been fantastic. So I think looking at those kind of positives in the difficulty, I think. And I'd say the third thing is to just remain open and take advice. Consult as widely as you can, speak to many people. I have many WhatsApp groups, many groups of people that I constantly I'm sounding ideas with, asking questions, getting perspectives. And, because, it takes a village, as they say.
Yes, it does.
I think those joint, when it's too difficult and when things aren't making sense, just widely consulting, I would say, is another way.
Excellent. That's fantastic. I mean, what you mentioned about the pandemic, I mean, a lot of us, a lot of professional women just thought we always had to fly out, literally take 5 days out of your day, of your week, for a 40-minute presentation and do that, loop back. But now we do it from pretty much anywhere. And I think that is a plus. I like this question, and I'd like to put it to you. It says, what would you say to your teenage self if you had the opportunity, taking into consideration the lessons you have learned?
To my teenage self, I think to be much more confident and to be bolder.
Boldness.
And to be more risk-taking.
Yes. So to be bolder and that's good. And I think especially for young people these days, with all the pressure that comes, from the internet. Right. So I have a couple more, and then our time will be up. So it says, what is the place of lobbying and having a sponsor speak on your behalf to rise up the career ladder? It is usually said that doing the work alone is not enough.
Yes. I think there is a place, but it's not as sinister as it sounds. I think there's some people who feel you need to have a godfather or godmother somewhere to succeed. I think it's about pursuing excellence and being professional and being the best you can. And I think that by being hardworking, putting your best foot forward, trying to be the best at what you're doing, you get noticed. And you don't go looking for sponsors, they find you. Because at the end of the day, you make other people look good if you do well as well. Because if you are somebody who executes a project on time and you do it well and you get things done, there are people who want you on their team.
There are people
who want to advocate for you. So I do think that there's a role and it's important, but it's not like you go and look for a mentor, you go and look for an advocate. I think by virtue of your work ethic, they find you.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm just looking through the questions to make sure I don't miss. Okay, work-life balance. She goes, you've had a highly mobile career. You said earlier that you stayed your authentic self while being also being a wife and a mother. Could you please share some tips on how you've balanced your life and career?
I'm a fan of yet another, this is an article now, it's called Centered Leadership by McKinsey, and it's quite an old article. And it talks about a few principles there. And one of them that I like is, I think it's called managing your energy. Okay. And that is about not trying to do it all, right? And not trying to do it all at once. Early on in my career, I felt guilty about everything. I'm not spending enough time at work, not spending enough time at home, not spending enough time with my children, not spending, and then I just thought, I got to a particular stage and I thought, just stop there. It's important to prioritize different things at different times. There are times where work is important. I'm on the road, traveling to many countries, or I've got a big presentation, I'm up for like almost 24 hours, and the work is important. Also, by the same token, there are times where my children are more important, whether it's before A-levels, when I took a few months off to support my daughters, or it's making sure that you show up for that play or that recital, so it's really about prioritizing and not trying to be superwoman. There are things that I fail at regularly. Okay. Sometimes my kids don't like what I cook. Tough. That's just what's available. You don't like it, get something else, kind of thing. And I don't harbor guilt about that anymore. I just try and calibrate what's the most important at any point in time, and manage my energy and manage my time in that way, and also try and find time for myself.
Awesome. Yes, very important. I'll do 3 more and then we'll wrap up. So it says, in aiming to achieve diversity and inclusivity, what are your personal views concerning the introduction and or enforcement of set quotas and targets?
I'm more of a fan of targets rather than quotas, to be honest, because at the end of the day, I still think meritocracy is key. The reason why those targets are important is that you want to create an enabling environment for women to succeed, but you don't want mediocrity to succeed. So by having targets, hopefully it changes behaviors. So for example, if you have a target to ensure that X percentage of women are on a board, you're going to make sure that A, you have a diverse slate, B, you have diverse candidates, right? So you have diverse people interviewing and you have diverse people being interviewed.
Apply, yes.
So that the best person, who possibly is a woman, percolates on. So I would rather than saying, oh, we're going to choose this woman, but actually I would rather choose a man that's more competent than a woman who's less competent. I don't think one should be going that way. I think it's about creating the enabling environment so that the best person, who sometimes will be a woman, gets chosen.
Good job. Excellent. Thank you. So I have, says, hello, Ireti, such an inspiring journey and great outcomes. Congratulations. Would it be the same for women with disabilities or impairments, such as visual or mobility? Any tools or structures in situ to encourage disabled women to aspire to such heights?
That's a great question. And I think we need to be a lot more deliberate about creating that environment. I do think women with disabilities can aspire to great heights. And I think it behoves on us. And when I think of the banking industry, for example, we have 9 sustainability principles, and one of them is around inclusiveness and making sure that we create the enabling environment. So there's no reason why, with the adequate provisions, appropriate provisions for women who have disabilities, for us to make provision, and even men who have disabilities too, for us to make the adequate provision, whether it's physically or even just giving more time for tasks to be done, or creating the right workspaces. So I think it's possible, but I think the challenge is for us who are employers to do better to enable that.
Right, there's so many more questions, but I'll just end with one question, but I think I kind of know the answer. It says, was there any time during your career that you wished to quit? What led to it, and how did you overcome it?
Several times.
That's what I thought.
Several times, I have to say. I think I did quit once, but then I got hired back. But yes, I took a few months off, but yes, I ended up coming back. And yes, what I think it's always been about finding a role that I'm passionate about, that I can make a difference and I can enjoy. And I think that's what's kept me. I never intended to spend 33 years in one organization. That was never what I signed up for. But what I think has kept me going and inspired is the ability to find those roles where you just where your interest merges with the passion for that particular area, and one is able to have made a difference. So I think that's really what has kept me going.
Excellent. I think that's it. I really, there's so many more questions, but please keep the questions coming. We will, if you put your email address up, we will send you answers to your direct questions. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. I've learned so much, from this 50 or 50 odd minutes, and I'm going to hand over now to Deputy President Ray Ateli for the vote of thanks and announcements. And really, ma'am, on behalf of the NBCC, I really must say thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the privilege.
Thank you very much, Lara, for that very well coordinated session. And I know that the time we had wasn't enough to do justice to a very lively session with Mrs. Ireti Samuel Ogu, the MD CEO of Citibank Nigeria. We are grateful that you took out time to share your experiences with us. And I know that our members, and indeed non-members who called in at this session, will be looking forward to having you back again, because they've been really, really touched by some of the experiences that you shared with us today. Once again, thank you very much, Mrs. Samuel Ogu. I also want to thank Lara Kayode, the founding partner of Kayode & Co., who moderated the session. I want to thank all our patrons and council members who found time to equally participate in this program. Our sponsors, of course, Custodian and Allied Investment PLC, we want to thank you. You have been a worthy partner on this journey, and we know we can always count on Custodian. Ladies and gentlemen, and program committee members, it's been quite a very lively one, and we are happy that the headquarters was able to put together all of what we have heard today, and it's been quite an educative webinar. For our upcoming events, just a few announcements. If you want to discover new immigration opportunities to the UK or the Caribbean, we have a partnership event that is coming up. We are organizing with Greenwich Trustees Limited, and it's holding on Wednesday, September the 29th at 11 a.m. It will be worth your while to be part of it. And if you want to meet the governor of Ondo State for business and investment exploratory opportunities, we equally have an activity coming up on the 21st of October, on Thursday, that is, by 12 p.m. We would like you to join and benefit from these two impactful events, and we know it will be worth your while. Then, if you are interested in joining the MBCC, everyone is invited. If you want to join, if you want your company to benefit from the networking opportunities and all of the numerous benefits that the chamber bestows, it's important that you go to our website, www.mbcc.org.ng, and you will find the information you need. It's as easy as that. Next time you are with us on a webinar, you will be a member and not just a visitor. So on this note, once again, I want to thank you all for the opportunity of sharing your time with us today. And we look forward to meeting with you again. If you want to have this conversation continue offline, we have our various social media handles that you can go to. Some of the videos of events that we held in recent past, you can find them on YouTube. And then if you want to reach us, we are available on Facebook, we are available on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and soon we'll be back on Twitter. Thank you and have a beautiful day.